Welcome to another edition of Disability and You. I'm Ganesha Singh, and I'll be with you for approximately 28 minutes. On this edition, we'll be discussing youth, and today is International Youth Day 2023. And with me is Ariana Siraj, who is part of the Ghana Youth in Environment Network and also an environmental awareness officer at Ministry of Natural Resources. With Ariana is Rosemary Ramit, who is no stranger to this program, and she's a disability rights advocate. As I said, our focus will be youth, since today is International Youth Day. The theme for this year is green skills, and we're going to zero in on that area and hear from the two young ladies on what are their plans and some of the issues in getting young people involved in the green economy, so to speak. Ariana, I just want to start with you first. Help us to better understand what are green skills.
So, in my opinion, green skills are everything that encompasses the transition um, for, into a greener economy, a more sustainable environment, and a more climate friendly society. It could entail anything from, the technical field, the awareness field, the advocacy field. It deals with, learning about green technology and implementing green technology, raising awareness about various environmental impacts and so on, and just, being able to advocate for the environment and to foster a behavioral shift towards becoming more climate conscious as an individual.
And you, as a, highlighting your portfolios when we started just now, you work with the Ministry of Natural Resources, but also part of the Youth Network. Tell us what you are doing within your job to get more young people involved in the green economy to develop their green skills.
So, currently at the Ministry of Natural Resources, I coordinate an annual program called the Youths in Natural Resources Program, which is a capacity building program in a sense, targeting young people between the ages of 16 to 21. And the main aim of the program is to give young people a sense as to what it would be like to, or what it would feel like to be employed in any of the extractive industry sectors. So, forestry, mining, and well, now oil and gas. So, we take these individuals and we expose them to all of these sectors in a more hands on and immersive way so that when the time comes for them to make a decision as to what career they would want to pursue, they would have a better understanding before they make their choices.
So it's like an internship, so to speak.
In a sense, yes, it is.
Okay. Thanks, Ariana. Rosemary, coming from a disability background or from the disability community, do you find many young persons with disabilities having an interest in environmental sustainability or have an understanding of what the green economy is all about and the transition? Because the world is going towards more sustainable energy and a sustainable approach toward development. Do you think persons with disabilities, the younger ones, have an understanding of what this is that is all about, and how are they involved?
All right. So this is generally a very new area for the disability community. And I would say I wouldn't be able to speak on what the extent of the interest is like, because what I know for a fact is that the awareness is not at the level that it should be, meaning that most young people with disabilities are generally not exposed to these concepts and these approaches and things like sustainability and so on. What I do know is that GCOPD has their STEM robotics program, and a component of the program is to have children with disabilities in all of the special schools being exposed to things like environmental awareness, reusing, recycling, and so on. So I think to the best of my knowledge, I think that would be the extent of what the experience is like. What I can say is that I know GCOPD is also trying to move more towards bringing persons with disabilities into the space. And I'm happy that Ariane is here because we'll definitely collaborate more on that. Added to that, I would say that I know that GCOPD is also working on a sustainable farming project, which I know will commence very soon. And part of that is that we hope to implement like climate smart technology and so on. So I would say that we are moving towards that.
So you have multiple initiatives to get more persons with
Yes.
disabilities.
That would, yes, serve as more of an introduction into green skills.
And that's excellent. But do you find, persons, or sorry, do you see much opportunities in that area for persons with disabilities in comparison to the traditional skills? Do you see them more involved and being able to participate in a more meaningful way in the green economy?
Definitely, because as we always say, people with disabilities, we make up a percentage of the population, and if you want to move towards a more greener world, more sustainable world, then you can't neglect the community of persons with disabilities. And we do have a role to play, and I think that's where the conversation starts of how we can be involved and how we can contribute to ensuring that we have a sustainable future.
Thanks. Ariana, you mentioned the program that you're working on to get young people involved and being able to get a better understanding of how the different extractive sectors work and helping them to have an understanding what are the green skills, how they can get involved. Do you see an interest in comparison to the traditional sectors? Do you see more of an interest with the young people in what you do?
Oh, definitely, Ganesh. So, well, with the new and upcoming oil and gas sector that we have, I definitely have seen a dramatic increase in interest in that sector, particularly in comparison to the traditional sectors in Guyana's economy. I'm not saying that the other sectors should be neglected, but we have seen like a great interest in the oil and gas and for, the future that it holds for our country. But we do try to be balanced in our approach to not, like lead them into the oil and gas sector alone particularly, but to just, encourage them to pursue careers in all of the other sectors as well. We do take them to NARI and give them exposure into the agricultural sector as well, which is an extremely critical sector for not only Guyana but the Caribbean as well. Guyana used to be known as the food basket of the Caribbean, and that's something that we're trying to encourage and revamp as well.
Definitely. And that is, good that you're not just exposing them because everybody want to get in oil and gas.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure that's where the interest would be with most young people. But based on your experience, and this is both for you, Marianne and Rosemary, do you see young people really having an interest in being part of this whole process of moving towards a more sustainable development and a more sustainable world? Do you think they really understand the magnitude of some of the issues environmental issues we face, like climate change and so on?
Well, in my experience, I do think the interest is there. I think there is potential, and us as adults, we need to be able to tap into that potential in our young people and just give them the opportunities and a platform for them to, experience this growth and try to foster these skills and lean them towards this more green economy, green environment, sustainable
so a lot
environment.
more awareness, a lot more hands-on exposure.
Yes.
You think will help them to develop more of an interest?
I definitely think so.
What are your thoughts, Rosemary?
Well, I do agree with Ariana. I think when it comes to especially when you look at like children and young people and so on, there is definitely potential for greater understanding, but then there's also age appropriate understanding. So a child may not be able to really comprehend the full complexity of all of these environmental issues and so on, but they will understand, simpler concepts like not littering and trying to protect in the
Recycling.
environment and things like that. So they can start to have that interest, and I think understand that it is their role as the future to protect and ensure that they are able to grow up in a world where they're safe and healthy.
So definitely more age-appropriate materials should be developed and incorporated at all levels of our education system.
Yep.
Definitely. And what are some of the challenges you think? Well, Rosemary would have mentioned the absence of age-appropriate in materials in some instances. But what are some of the other challenges you think that are affecting young people and from getting into the sector?
Um, well, some of the challenges would be capital, the finance for them to pursue their studies.
Yeah.
Everything comes at a cost.
That is
So
true.
I think that's definitely one of the major ones. But of course, the government has its school scholarship program and so on. I think a major challenge would just be the lack of capital and then probably lack of materials for them to pursue studies in that area. Yeah.
Cool. Rosemary?
I would say, okay, so from my perspective, the challenge too would be, I think, the adults may not be the best at setting the example because, young people look up to the adults. And like if you speak to the ordinary man in society, climate change and environmental issues may not be a priority for them. And so really it's not really being filtered down. I think the importance of green skills and so on is not being filtered down into, like, let's say on the micro level or the meso level, in the communities and so on as much. And so young people are, hearing about it and like it's this new thing and people are talking about it, but there's no really how to put, like, integration then of it into, the households and so on. And I think that that's something we need to work on because as adults, we are modeling the behavior we want the young people to adopt. And so I think that's one of the things we really need to work on.
And, I would agree. A cultural shift is what is
Right.
required because
Yes.
the way we take care of our environment leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and we
agreed.
and we each are responsible for that. We each have a role to play. It's not the mayor's job to clean up the like he's not the only one responsible, or the city council not the only one responsible for keeping the city clean and so on. We also have that role to play. So I think that's what really needs to filter down to individuals.
And I agree. It's we always blame policymakers. We blame the people that are at the top, but they can they can develop policies, put the necessary resources for implementation. But if at the ground level we're going to continue to litter, we're going to continue to destroy the trees that might be planted, the green spaces that exist,
Yeah.
we're just moving in circles.
True.
And we will just keep blaming the people that are in charge. Ariana, Rosemary, we're going to pause for a break. When we return, we will venture into some of the other issues affecting young people and what can be done to provide more opportunities for young persons within our society. Before we get into some of the other issues that affect young persons within our society, I just want to highlight that we are fortunate as Guyanese to live in a country where we still got about 70% or a bit less of our rainforests untouched.
It's actually higher, Ganesh.
Higher.
It's 80, 84, 85.
Wow.
Yep.
And we should be proud, and at the same time, we should take care of it. And we must commend the initiatives of the government with the trading of the carbon credits so that, we get some benefit from the world that is, polluting for keeping our forests intact to benefit everybody globally. Rosemary, I'm going to start with you. What are some of the other issues, other than the challenges and understanding of the green economy? Um, some of the other challenges and issues affecting young people with disabilities? I know there's a whole plethora, but just highlight the ones that are on top of the list.
All right, I think currently it would be the lack of opportunities, and as I said, the area is fairly new for us as advocates, and so it's really about starting that dialogue with people like Ariane and so on, where we could get more inclusion of youths with disabilities, because as I said before, they do have a role to play.
But the general issues that affect them outside of the
terms
green
of-
economy, outside the issues that affect their daily living and so forth.
Okay, so we're talking about things like
Yes.
employment. Generally, you find employment is an issue. Well, I know that we do have a lot more training ongoing now, through the Ministry of Human Services and GCOPD and the Board of Industrial Training and so on. But let me just quickly say that I hope that training in these different grade skills area can definitely be implemented into one of those areas. I think that's an opportunity there for that.
Most definitely.
Employment and definitely accessibility is still a major issue. Access to information for persons who are blind, for the deaf community, and of course access to the infrastructure for people with physical disabilities, because those are all factors that limit their full and effective participation in all spheres of society.
So employment accessibility are two other
Yeah,
the issues at top of the
major
list.
issues, yes.
And Ariana, what about you? What are some of the other issues as a young person yourself and working with young people? What are some of the things that you're hearing in relation to the issues that affect them on a regular basis or on a daily basis?
So some of the issues that would plague them would be, as Rosemary said, employment opportunities. Not often are companies willing to take on young people with no experience. I'm sure when you see the ads in the newspapers or so on, they always want, individuals with 5 years working experience, 10 years working experience, and so on. So I think that that's definitely an issue that is faced. Being given opportunities to lead and participate in, policy making, decision making. I think we definitely have more scope for that, for including young people. I feel like they can often be overlooked because they're young. People see them, older people that is, see them as being inexperienced. But I find personally, with working with my youths in my program, that they can offer a fresher perspective and newer ideas, and I think that they are definitely valuable. They're the nation's best resources, and we need to put more work into helping to develop them and foster their education and so on.
I'm gonna be the devil's advocate here. We are growing and growing a rapidly growing economy, and we would have heard through the media there is a shortage of labor, shortage of people to work in many sectors. Do you think that young people are reluctant to venture out into certain sectors, hence the absence of people to work in certain fields? And on the other side, you got people complaining of the lack of employment opportunities.
I do think certain sectors are frowned upon in today's generation. For example, farming and being a laborer. Sorry. So I think we need to incentivize those areas more. Currently, I am a member of the President's Youth Advisory Council, the agricultural sector in particular, and we are working on doing handing out loans to young people once they can provide a feasible business plan to encourage farming, because farming is definitely an area that is often overlooked. People just think of it as, going and it being backbreaking work, but with green technology, new innovations and so on, hydro planting and so on, it's aquaculture and so on. It's definitely an area with tons of scope and an area that we need to encourage persons to get involved with in today's generation, because at the end of the day you can't eat oil and gas.
Exactly. And it's not going to be there forever.
Exactly.
So we need to get more people involved in other sectors.
Yep.
And the government is doing a lot to get more young people involved in agriculture. Let's hope they take up the opportunities. Rosemary, we discussed there, still some unemployment on one hand, one side of the coin, on the other side, a lot of vacancies. But, the two do not correlate. But I want to go to the point that Ariana mentioned, where employers are asking for years of experience. Do you think more young people should be involved in volunteerism, and that should be recognized as job experience?
I would say yes. And actually, just the other day, I was having a talk with some young people, and I was telling them the importance of volunteering, because you may not be, getting a full salary and so on, but I think it gives you the experience. And I think that employers should recognize that, because if an individual is immersed in the job and they're doing it, and they're getting the experience, then, if it's a young person, then how else will they get experience if every other job is looking for, that kind of working experience? So I am a big supporter of volunteerism, and what I can say is that I know the Ministry of Education is making compulsory that every child in secondary school must be involved in some form of volunteerism. So I hope that more young people and that schools will encourage the young people to go into those fields that are generally not, the traditional fields.
And at the same time, we need that to be matched with employers recognizing
Yes.
the hours of volunteerism.
Definitely,
And the
because
experience gain.
volunteering definitely helps to develop soft skills, which I think is critical in a work environment.
Yeah.
Because
Most
oftentimes
definitely.
you see persons coming in, they don't know how to work in a team, they don't know how to work with others and get along with others. And I personally think that being a part of a volunteer group from a young age can definitely help to foster those skills, which is very important in that sort of environment, a working environment.
And it developing soft skills, but at the same time, if you volunteer in certain sectors, you can also develop the job skills
Definitely, definitely.
that can help you in the work environment. Before we wrap up the program, Ariana, is there anything else that you would like to share with the general public on youth empowerment, issues affecting young people, or even talking specifically about the young people and green skills?
So I would just like to say that, well, today is the official launch of International Youth Day, and it will follow a 3-day forum, which will be held at the Guyana Pegasus Hotel. And so it's going to be hosted by the United Nations in collaboration with Rights of the Child Commission and UNICEF. And I would encourage persons to come out and participate in this 3-day forum. It would help to start a conversation about green skills and the transition into a greener economy. We're going to have international representatives there. You would be able to gain fresh perspectives, new ideas. You would be able to learn about what other countries are doing in terms of the development of green skills, and hopefully see how you could apply that to Guyana. And I would encourage persons to come out and participate in that
Excellent.
forum.
Rosemary?
even though International Youth Day is one day in the year, I think, as young people, we can definitely continue working and seeking out opportunities to better empower ourselves and to better be able to contribute to the development of our society. So let it be a continuous process.
And we should take our civic responsibility.
That's
or
right.
Young people should take this civic
Yeah.
responsibility very seriously.
Very serious, yes.
And be more involved in the overall development of our country.
Definitely.
I want to thank you both for joining and sharing with us, from a youth perspective, because both of you are still in the youth category. I want to thank you very much for joining us for another edition of Disability in You. Remember to facilitate whatever opportunities you can for young persons so that they too can develop the necessary skills to be tomorrow leaders. I'll be back next time for another edition of Disability in You.